Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of GM Sports Report, your weekly podcast on all things sports. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to be able to see all of our videos. I'm here with Mason today, and we're going to get ready to talk about the NBA trade deadline. It is officially over. All the rumors are done. All the moves have been made. Every team is pretty much set, other than the buyout candidates and stuff like that. Every team is pretty much set in stone now. It's time to move forward with the rest of the season. This was an absolutely crazy trade deadline. Mason, I just want to get your thoughts real quick on what this trade deadline was in your opinion, because to me, this was the craziest one in NBA history.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm really kind of starting to really jump into NBA, just total. I've always kind of been more of like into MLB and NFL. So this is really my first experience as like all in, as kind of like a journalist point of view as far as as far as the trade deadline. So I'd say it's definitely been exciting and kept you on your toes pretty much the whole time. Um, yeah, I was all into it, and I know you were, so it's gonna be exciting to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. This is quite the first trade deadline to have as like your
Yeah,
real first experience. This was a crazy one. I mean,
yeah,
we were talking probably like a week back, and you're like asking me, like, "Oh, is the NBA trade
mm.
deadline like that big of a deal? Like, does that many things happen?" I'm like, "Yeah, usually there's like one or two big names that get moved, and then like it's a bunch of role players get swapped around." This year, I think if I'm remember off the top of my head, there was 8 former All-Stars that have been traded in this trade deadline. So absolutely crazy. And with that being said, I'm just going to go over a list of all the notable trade acquisitions that happened. I'm not going to go over every single small trade, but I will go over what I think is the notable trades that have happened. Starting off with obviously Luka for AD, Luka going to the Lakers, AD going to the Mavericks. Uh, De'Aaron Fox getting traded to the San Antonio Spurs. Zach LaVine getting traded to the Sacramento Kings in that trade. Then we had the big one we all expected, Jimmy Butler going to Golden State, and the Heat got back Andrew Wiggins. They flipped a couple players for Davion Mitchell, and then they also are keeping Kyle Anderson. The next trade we have is another All-Star, Brandon Ingram, who was traded to Toronto for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and picks. Then after that, we had Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton. We also had Mark Williams being traded to the Lakers, which I found shocking because they gave up their rookie Dalton Connect, which they were very high on. They also gave up Cam Reddish and some draft capital. Now, here's a very underrated one. We had DeAndre Hunter traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Karis LeVert and George Niang. And then we
Mm.
had Bogdan Bogdanovic to the Clippers for Bones Highland and Terrence Mann. And that was pretty much the big notable ones. Obviously, there were some little ones like Jericho Sims for DeLon Wright, and
Mhm.
just those little ones that are like marginal upgrades. But those are the big ones, and man, that's a lot to digest. I feel like so. To digest all of this and kind of talk about everything, I kind of have like this list of questions that really I think helps us like gather our thoughts the right way about this, because this is a lot to take in. I mean, when we try to talk about Luka and AD on the podcast this last week, we were kind of all over the place. So this should help us kind of keep our thoughts gathered. My first question for you is, Mason, who do you think is the winner of the trade deadline?
So I'd probably I'd probably say just Lakers. I can't stress enough how big that trade was of just Luca, just getting him in total, and then they went out of their way to get Mark Williams. I believe is from the Hornets, and that kind of filled that big role that people were really worried about. They did end up giving away, was it Dalton Connect,
Mhm.
which everyone was kind of very high on as far as having a great rookie season so far. Um, but I'd just say in the total, with everything that the Lakers have going on and everything that they're able to bring in, as well as what they have and setting themselves up for the future, I'd say that they're probably my winners.
Yeah, I put down 3 winners. The Lakers are obviously my number 1 winner. I mean, you get Luka Doncic, you're gonna be number 1. And like you said, traded for Mark Williams is a big trade for them. They needed a center,
Hmm.
and this is a very good center prospect. He's 23 years old, so he's still young. Now he has missed a lot of games for injury, but he's a very good lob threat that Luka, I think, will love to have. Kind of like that Derek Lively build that was there over there in Dallas with him. So it's going to fit in perfectly. And I think that was a good move for them. So obviously, Lakers are my number one. My number two is I think the Spurs are a winner. Obviously, getting De'Aaron Fox to
Yeah.
pair with Wemby is a huge step in the right direction. And on top of that, you got to keep some of your young guns like Steven Castle, who's a great rookie this year. And you also still have Devin Vassell, which was brought up in a lot of trade talks. So they made out pretty well. And then I have a player for number three. As much as it pains me to say, Jimmy Butler is a winner in this trade deadline. He wanted to, essentially
Mm-hmm.
go find his money while staying on a contender. And I wouldn't say the Warriors are like clear-cut favorites or anything, but they're still going to be pretty good with him. And we saw after that trade broke yesterday that he instantly got his 2-year, $121 million extension. So he got what he wanted at the end of the day. So I will say that Jimmy Butler is a winner in this trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. My next question is obviously, we just talked about the winners. Who do you think are the losers of this trade deadline?
So the thing I don't think I'm as knowledgeable on it as much as you are, but I have some kind of concerns. Maybe for the Raptors. Brandon Ingram
Mhm.
obviously going over there, but they did get rid of Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and a first and a second pick. Um, so I'm just wondering if that's maybe too much for a guy like Brandon Ingram. I kind of wanted to pick your brain on that because I wouldn't. I'm like I said, I'm not as knowledgeable as you are to call them a loser, but that's definitely somebody I guess, kind of concerned about going into the future. So I definitely want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm actually very glad that you touched on that because, when you look at it on paper, seeing Brandon Ingram, you're like, oh, that's a really good player, former All Star. He's going to slide in and fit
Mhm.
in perfectly with Scotty Barnes. Here's my concerns on this. You traded an expiring contract in Brown. Obviously, you gave up Olynyk, who's not like a key player for them or anything like that. And like you said, they gave up draft picks for him. The
Mhm.
hypothetical here is Brandon Ingram is an expiring contract. So it is not a guarantee that he comes back. This might be a half a season rental. And that was a hefty price to pay for only a half season if you can't re-sign him. Now, if they do re-sign him, I think this was a good move for the Toronto Raptors. I think getting that pure scorer next to Scotty Barnes is big. I mean, obviously RJ Barrett's been pretty good this year, but Brandon Ingram is a much more efficient scorer. So
Mhm.
another thing is the health. He has to be healthy. Brandon Ingram has not been that healthy the last couple of seasons, and that's a big factor as well. But it is the Raptors are always kind of like you never really know what they're doing. It looks like they're trying to contend, but like they're not at the same time. It's kind of like the Bulls, what they have been the last couple years. You never really knew which
Mhm.
direction they were going. But it is an interesting trade, and if they can re-sign him, I do like this move for them. If they don't re-sign him this offseason, then I think it's a terrible move. But we will see.
All right.
My losers are two teams. I put the Phoenix Suns number one. Now,
Yeah.
Phoenix were the front runners for Jimmy Butler, essentially. Jimmy Butler seemed to only want to go to the Phoenix Suns at first. That was every week a new report would come out with a new story about how much he wanted to go there and how clear it was that they were going to extend him and extend Kevin Durant and make that work. Now, the last few days, it got crazy. They were talking about trading Kevin Durant. At first, they were talking about trading Kevin Durant to the Golden State Warriors to get Jimmy Butler. And then for a few hours before the Jimmy Butler trade, there was even rumors about Kevin Durant getting traded back to the Miami Heat. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, Bradley Beal had to deal with noise from fans, critics, journalists, probably his teammates about him not waiving his no trade clause. Everyone's probably mad at him. I don't blame him. You have a no trade clause. If you want to use it, use it. You know what I mean? That's the Suns' fault for trading for a guy that had a no trade clause. Uh,
Yep.
but my thing, the reason why I think they're losers is also not to mention they traded Yusuf Nurkic today. To get rid of him, they had to give up a pick. So it's like they
Mm.
not only did they dump him off, but they had to give up a pick to dump him off somewhere. So my concern about Phoenix is they went from all these rumors, and they had just as much drama going on as the Heat, in my opinion, as far as all the rumors and speculations going on. And this is a terrible look for the Suns. You didn't come away with Jimmy Butler, and now Bradley Beal is probably not happy, and now Kevin Durant is probably not happy. There was a report today saying how he was caught off guard by the reports of him, being shopped on the trade market. And I would not be surprised if Kevin Durant requests a trade this summer. It seems to be like that could be a direction it's heading, and it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. The Suns have definitely been probably the biggest letdown as far as a big three team. I mean, you had Beal, Booker, and Kevin Durant, and you're only 11th place in the West right now, and you probably you might not even make the playoffs because the West is super stacked now after this trade deadline. So Suns are my first losers. My second losers, I'll be more quick on this, is the Chicago Bulls. As I said, you never really know which route they're going. It seems like they're trying to go into a rebuild. They finally got rid of Zach LaVine, and they only got one pick back in that, by the way, which I thought was pretty crazy. And then they didn't trade Vucevic, who was supposed to be traded. And then they were talking about trading Lonzo Ball, and they ended up extending Lonzo Ball. So I don't know if you saw this. The Chicago Bulls have 6 point guards on their roster right now.
You don't need
6
all
players in the same position. It's crazy.
I don't
know what route. Yeah, I don't know what their plan is right now. I follow some Chicago fans on Twitter and stuff, mainly for Cubs news, but they also report Bulls stuff, and they're all just like so confused right now. 6 point guards on the same roster. It's like Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, Trey Jones. There's like 2 other ones. It's just crazy. It's a mess over there. They need to figure out. Everyone thought they were going to launch this rebuild with the Zach LaVine trade, and that was their only move this trade deadline. That's just crazy to me. But so those are my 2 losers.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to ask you is, now we talked about the winners and losers. Who do you think had the most underrated move for this trade deadline?
I'd probably say DeAndre Hunter to Cleveland. Probably for Caris LeVert and then Niang and picks. I think that's kind of overlooked because Cleveland was needing a guy kind of like DeAndre Hunter. So I think that's definitely big for them.
Yeah,
and to be able to keep pretty much everyone else.
Yeah. I said DeAndre Hunter as well. Cleveland, there was like murmurs about the DeAndre Hunter stuff, but you didn't really know how far they'd go because, they're one of the best teams in the East. It doesn't seem like they need to shake things up too much. I will say DeAndre Hunter, phenomenal addition for them. He's having a great year. He stayed healthy this year, averaging 19 points, a solid defender, very athletic. He adds something to the Cavs that I think was needed in defense, and his ability to score at an efficient rate is very useful for Cleveland. So I also agree. I think this is the most underrated move that was made, making a team even better than it already is. And DeAndre Hunter in Cleveland's going to work really good. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. As long as he can stay healthy. That's a big thing about him is needing to stay healthy.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to move on. And I want to know what move you think isn't as good as what people think. Very much an overrated move, in your opinion.
So I don't know if I'd call it overrated as far as just entirely, but I would have to say more of a financial aspect to it because it's honestly the Jimmy Butler to Golden State. We knew Jimmy Butler was going to get his bag, and he's going to be added to wherever he was going. But honestly, 121 million over 2 years, that's insane to me. So I don't know if that's really going to impact Golden State as much as the money is showing. But yeah, that's just really kind of my thoughts about that. He's a phenomenal player, don't get me wrong, but 2 years for that much amount of money. The only other player I've kind of seen get that money so far was LeBron, and what he get, like 105 for 2 million or for 2 years. So, I think that's. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna say it's not gonna work out at all. Just from a financial aspect, I think it's a little much. So.
Yeah, I think it's very fair to say that the Jimmy Butler trade is a overrated trade, and it doesn't have as much hype, at least in my opinion, as people are claiming it to be.
Right.
Paying a 35-year-old that, I hate to say it, half-asses his way through the regular season, has his own problems in the locker room. We've seen it with each team he's on now. You're paying him $121 million. $60 million average salary. That's a lot of money.
That's insane.
And I just saw today before the Warriors game, Steve Kerr was making comments about it. And he said he's never even talked to Jimmy Butler in his life. He's never met him in his life. This is a big risk for like $121 million. I get they were trying to
Yeah.
match someone on Steph's timeline. And look, when it comes playoff time, Jimmy Butler is one of the best, if not
Yeah.
the best players in the NBA. And Steph Curry with him is going to be amazing. It will be fun to watch. But with how stacked the West is, I still just don't see those two alone like making it far. I think they need
Mhm.
one more piece. And that could be Jonathan Kuminga, stepping in and finally becoming the star that some people think he might become, or if they got to get someone this next offseason. I think they still need a piece because Draymond Green's not that guy. Like, let's be for real.
No.
I saw,
Yeah.
me like Sports Center posting the new big three in Golden State. Draymond Green is not a big three member anymore. Okay, let's make this clear. So yeah, I think that's very fair to say. The trade that I find overrated is Kyle Kuzma to the Bucks. This trade just felt weird to me
I was
because
thinking that
Kyle
too.
Kuzma, if you look at Kyle Kuzma this year, he is not having that good of a year, and he's playing on the Washington Wizards. That is a team where you go play whatever style of basketball you want, you go out there and play. That's why Jordan Poole is averaging like 24 points per
Yeah.
game right now. You can go play
Mhm.
however you want over there, and he's still not having a good year, okay? You think you're just going to magically move him over to the Bucks and he's going to magically fix all his problems and start playing good again? I don't know. I don't think Kyle Kuzma is that big of an upgrade from Chris Middleton. And I think it is terrible what the Bucks did to Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton had been with this team for 13
Absolutely.
seasons, won a championship
And
with
just
them, and then
gets
you just ship him
yeah.
off to a 6-win team in Washington.
It's a
That's just not
retirement home pretty
fair.
much.
Yes,
That's a
exactly.
retirement
Like,
home
get a
over there.
third team involved. Send him somewhere where like he
That's
can,
horrible.
still have a chance to win. He brought you a championship for Christ's sakes. Like, him and Giannis brought you a championship in 2021. So I'm shocked that they just shipped him off. But then again, they did the same thing to Drew Holiday with the Damian Lillard trade, shipping him off to Portland. Obviously, they got bought out over at Portland, and maybe Chris Middleton gets bought out. I doubt it. That's way too much money to buy someone out. But yeah, I think that's the most overrated trade. Kyle Kuzma, I think, is a very overrated player to begin with. So I don't think that this is like a move that makes the Bucks much better. And I also think you're doing
No.
one of your better players in franchise history wrong in Chris Middleton. I feel bad for him.
Yep.
All right. The next thing I want to ask you is, what are your biggest takeaways from this deadline? Whether it's like things you can see happening in the future, things that you saw happen from this deadline. Just what are some of your takeaways?
Um, in all honesty, I think kind of the teams that really needed, I guess, certain players in certain roles kind of got that filled. I just keep going back to the Lakers because they just honestly, in my opinion, they did it the best. Just this offseason or this trade deadline. They got the big they needed, and miraculously somehow out of nowhere they got Luca, and it's just and also Golden State is up there as well. Getting a guy to be with Curry. They said they needed another superstar. They get it with Jimmy Butler. Um, I did say they or maybe not overpaid, but definitely paid a lot of money um, to him. But I'd just say pretty much everything, every need I think was fulfilled in certain ways. Miami got a lot of players that you know could help out as far as depth, role players, kind of trade assets as well, if you will, for the 2026 free agency that can go on. So yeah, just a lot of good assets are kind of dispersed all around, and I really don't see too many horrible moves other than that Kuzma Middleton thing, and then just yeah, I think it was all around just great trade deadline.
Yeah, my takeaways are more things that I think I could see happen in the future, just based off of what happened
Mhm.
from this trade deadline. Um, you look over at the Atlanta Hawks right now; they're in a weird situation. They just traded Bogdan Bogdanovic and DeAndre Hunter, who are two guys that are pretty big pieces to their team and what they try to do. Obviously, Jalen Johnson is out for the rest of the season, so they're kind of just left with like this bad team for the rest of the year. And it was reported shortly after the trade deadline that Trae Young's future is reportedly murky. They've said this a
Get him
few
out.
times in the past and nothing's ever happened, but I would be very interested to see if Trae Young is in talks of being traded this summer. And I'll be very interested to see if a team in South Beach is willing to make a move for him.
Heck no,
Um,
man. Send him to the West.
my second
Send him to
takeaway
the West.
is also what I was kind of hinting at earlier. Watch out for KD this summer. Like I
Yeah.
said, Big Three looking terrible right now. They're 11th in the West. If they don't make the playoffs after all that drama that just happened, this trade deadline, I would not be surprised if KD requests out. Whenever KD sees drama, he's usually out of there. So that's all I'm going to really say
Mhm.
about that. Just be on the lookout for KD this summer. My third takeaway, I got to give a little bit of credit to my Miami Heat. I think, all things considered, how handcuffed you were in this situation, you did not make out too bad. Um, you get a solid guy that fits in perfectly with the Miami Heat and Andrew Wiggins. He's a great defender. He can score efficiently. He's going to fit in well next to Hero and Bam. And I think he's the perfect player to have right now after all the drama from the Jimmy stuff to get this guy that makes no drama at all. He just shows up and plays
Mhm.
basketball. I think this is a great personality wise to add to this Heat team. And with the pieces he brings to the table on the court, I think is a great fit too. And it's something that's very underrated and I'm looking forward to. And also getting Davion Mitchell. This guy is a great point of attack defender. He is in the, I think it was 99.5th percentile of ISO defenders, which is just absurd. So he's one of the best ISO defenders in the league. So is Andrew Wiggins, to be fair. But to have it as a point guard, we haven't had that since probably Gabe Vincent. So it's huge for the Heat. Obviously, Spoelstra loves those
Dang.
types of players. So I'll be interested to see uh, how Spoelstra utilizes him. And then Kyle Anderson, no one really knew if we were going to keep him or dump him off for salary. I don't really think he'll be that big of a piece. But, if anyone gets banged up or injured, he's more than capable of coming in and playing some basketball games. But the big thing is you get that first round pick for this 2025 year, which is a stacked draft class, because if the Heat make the playoffs this year, they weren't going to have their own first round pick. So to have like a backup plan and have a pick for this year's draft is really good. Now we're also under the first apron. So financially, we're a lot more free than what we were. So if anyone becomes available, we can start, looking to make a deal happen, and we will have a lot more free range to make something happen. So like if a KD requests out this summer, if a Trae Young requests out this summer, those are guys that we could get in the mix for and actually have a decent offer for now. So I think all things considered, Pat Riley, I talked a lot of crap about you these last couple months. I think you did a very good job, all things considered. Obviously, gonna miss Jimmy. This last 5 years was the best 5 years of watching basketball in my life, probably for a long time. So, I'm going to miss him, but at least he's traded to a team that I can still like in the Golden State Warriors. And I am excited for this future at the Miami Heat. All right. My final question going in, going into the month of January, I'd say there's a lot of the posts and stuff coming out about how viewership has been terrible in the NBA and how, no one's really watching right now. Do you think that this crazy trade deadline is going to help the viewership problem? And do you almost think that, some of these GMs were told, like, look, let's be more aggressive this year. Let's make things happen. Let's make the league fun again. What are your thoughts about the whole viewership thing? And do you think it correlates at all to the trade deadline? I just want to know your thoughts.
I can definitely see that to an extent. In my opinion, as far as being such a big football fan and like seeing how Goodell has run everything, I think it kind of trickles down from the commissioner. So, just it's really the little things that make viewers really want to tune in. Um, I wish I was around for short answer for the trade deadline. I think it will for certain games. I think there will be matchups with like the Lakers and like Golden State that will, obviously show the new players. And the Spurs game last night against the Hawks, that was great. That was fun to watch. Hawks had a
Mm-hmm.
good game. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I think about the deadline. But I also have something to say about the commissioner. Like I said, it's little things. I wish I was around for the Christmas jerseys.
Mm,
Everyone knows that basketball runs Christmas. Football, cool, not your day, your Thanksgiving. Thanks though. Um, just little things like that, things that make fans engaged and like, oh, that's really cool, things like
right.
just like I said, just things like that. And I saw things as far as saying maybe change the court for the finals. I don't know if they used to do that.
They used to, and it was
Um,
really cool.
Okay, so yeah, that's just me. I like the little kind of things. And even with NFL, with what they used to do, this the breast cancer awareness of all the players used to wear pink. That was awesome. That was fun to see, and it was like a
Yeah.
whole different era. Um, I think if we kind of did something new like that, and I think that the in-season tournament is helping with viewership to an extent. but I think the trade deadline will help with certain games, not every game, and I think just the big teams that were involved, like I mentioned, Lakers, and then probably the Mavs as well, AD, and just guys like that. I think it will help, but not as far into the future as we'd like to see. So
Right.
it'll be like a short term kind of die off a little bit, but we need to have like those kind of little things to make basketball fun to watch. Not to say that it's not, because it is. Playoffs is probably one of the most fun playoffs I've ever watched. But yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I think as far as the trade deadline goes, I do think this helps the viewership problem for a little bit here. Like you said, I don't think it's a long-term fix by any means, but
Hmm.
I know I'm tuning into Luka's first game as a Laker. I know
Right.
I'm tuning into
Hmm.
Anthony Davis's first game as a Maverick. I know when they face off against each other, I'm tuning in. I know
February
when Jimmy Butler
25th.
comes back to Miami, I was looking at ticket prices
Yeah.
earlier to see if I can go down to Miami and watch Jimmy Butler come back. So, I'm interested to see all these trades. I'm interested to see how they all play out. I'm going to be watching all these games. I'm going to
Yeah.
be watching the Warriors a lot more, obviously, because I'm a Jimmy fan. So yeah, I think that this will help the viewership, but this is not to Adam Silver's it's not because he did something
No.
that
No.
fixed it. This is because teams were really aggressive this year in the trade deadline and made big moves. So it's almost luck for Adam Silver that this is going to fix a lot of the viewership problems. Like you said, he needs to start making these plans that people want to see, like the court designs.
Hmm.
People have been begging for them to bring that back for
Oh my
years now.
gosh.
Just the little
Yeah.
things. It's like you said, the little things that will really be your long-term fix to the viewership things. But for right now, I know a lot of people are going to be watching the NBA to see how all these trades work out. So to not his own success, yes, it will fix the viewership issues for now. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up a crazy trade deadline. It was very fun the last month or so, listening to all the rumors flood in, being
Yeah.
caught off guard by the Luka news. Just absolutely crazy and fun. So thank you guys for tuning in and letting us break this down for you guys. Let us talk about it. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to be able to see all of our future videos. We will be having a Super Bowl special coming out soon here too for the NFL Super Bowl, Eagles, Chiefs. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, everybody.